Welcome to Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater.
This is going to be a fun program for so many reasons because it's the new year, and of course, Happy New Year to you and your family. But we've got a lot of exciting, entertaining things to talk about on the show, and not just what the topic is going to be. We're going to go a little bit off topic. Our topic is the New Mexico Legislature. It's here. As we say every January, it's here. How are their decisions, again, they represent you and me, but how are their decisions affect us? Is it what you want? What they're voting on, is that what you want? Think about it. Well, on the show, we're going to talk about how their decisions could be affecting us via businesses, small business, large businesses. The corner coffee shop that you like to go to will be here next time because a decision is made in Santa Fe. Well, we're going to talk to the New Mexico Business Coalition and what they fought for last session and what they're fighting for in 2025. And we're also going to learn about a new podcast associated with New Mexico Sun, where interviews are going to be on both sides, the left and the right, and probably in the center too. So please stay with us, and we're going to talk a little bit about basketball. Maybe that'll keep you staying with us. If they say, oh, Diane's going to talk about the legislature again. Oh, no, she does it every year. Well, we're going to talk about the legislature, but also about New Mexico basketball. So stay with us as we have a potpourri of talking points that are going to entertain you. I guarantee you that. Stay with us. We'll be back right after this. Okay, I'm so happy to have with us again Carla Sontag. She's the CEO and president of New Mexico Business Coalition and the publisher of New Mexico Sun. We love Carla. She's been here. She gives us a lot of information that affects our life. But she brought someone with her, someone new. Jim Williams.
Yes.
You may know the name, the voice, the face from so many areas in New Mexico. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Diane. I appreciate being here.
So that's the entertaining part. Carla, you're entertaining as well. She is associated with it. So the long and short of it is, Jim has now a new podcast associated with Carla and the New Mexico Business Coalition and the New Mexico Sun. That's what we're here to talk about. But what I learned about Jim Williams is a lot. You're the voice of the Lobos. Not only the voice, he was a player for the New Mexico Lobos from 1976 through 1980, just yesterday.
Long time ago.
No, yesterday, Jim.
Yeah, I'm 22, Diane. I wish.
You were a Lobo player. Tell us. You tell us better than I can.
I played basketball at the University of Mexico from 1976 to 80. You asked me about successes and, well, of course, my senior year, 1979-80, which your viewers will remember, those of us in our age bracket. They will remember that was one of the biggest scandals called Lobo Gate. Everybody got thrown off the team except three of us, a lot of my good friends, and we finished the year with 8 walk-ons and 3 scholarship players. And we had some successes. We competed well. My coach, Norm Ellenberger, was let go. And Norm remained a close friend of mine until his passing here a few years ago. But I broadcast Lobo games for 14 years.
Back to Lobo Gate.
Yeah.
Refresh our memories.
Okay.
What basically they were giving grades.
Essentially what happened is several of the coaches were creating fraudulent grades for players to be eligible. And when the NCAA came in, they had actually been investigating gambling. They thought
gambling, that's all.
Well,
oh boy.
What they found out is that our coaches were not gambling. They were not manipulating scores and point spreads and those kind of things. What they found out is that there had been some grades that were changed in order to keep certain players eligible. Mm-hmm. And that's really, I mean, that was a long time ago, and I will tell you, I enjoyed my entire experience. That was a difficult year, but the friendships and the relationships that I have were I'll always have them.
And athletics were very important to you, of course. And then from there, we're talking about that. You went on to be the voice of the Lobos for 15 years.
Yeah, broadcast the Lobo games for a number of years, did some regional stuff. That, of course, was television. It was a little bit, I liked it a lot. When we used to do a live Lobo game, for example, you could go home at 10 o'clock and watch the game live because we would tape delay it if it was a home game. So people would go to the games and then they would go home and watch it again. But in those days, you used to know who all the players were. All of our road games were live. And I'd kind of like to get back to that because now it's kind of hit or miss whether the games will be on TV, et cetera.
But 15 years of doing that, and then you went into banking. You coached a little bit. You thought about coaching for the NBA?
Yeah, well, I wanted to be an NBA coach. I coached in the CBA for a number of years with my former college coach, Norm Ellenberger. Being gone 25 days a month, though, was not conducive to having a family, which was really my primary goal. Wow. So I went into banking, retired after 35 years, about 6 years ago. And
father of five.
Father of five, grandfather of five.
Congratulations,
Yeah.
a new grandfather of one.
Of one, yeah.
And also with Calvary, business manager for the Calvary Church.
Yeah, I worked at Calvary. Been part of their staff now 2 different stints. I was originally the business manager, left banking for a short time. And then I've been on staff there for 6 years, hosting an afternoon radio show called ABQ Connect.
And now you're going to be and now Carla met you, and she brought you in with the New Mexico Sun and a new podcast.
Well, I would say this, Carla, and maybe you would agree with this. I'm embarrassed that I used to I love sports. Don't get me wrong. Love it. It's entertaining. But I actually used to think it was important. And Carla really was one of the people that taught me there's a lot of things happening in our communities that are more important. And I really appreciate you doing that.
Well, that's awesome. But you know what's important? He's engaged now in the community and he's making a difference, and we're just
he's been engaged a long time, it seems, with Calvary, right?
Oh, yeah.
And now just a re-engaged focus due to Carla.
Yeah.
Wow.
But I think
what did you say to him? What did you say to him, Carla?
No, just conversations like you and I have, and it just was on his heart that he wanted to be more engaged in those important topics that make a difference in the state. And so I'm thrilled. I can't wait to get him moving on these podcasts because I think it's going to make a big difference.
Tell us about the podcast, Carla.
Well, he's going to host them, and we should let him tell you what he's going to do.
I think our goal right now is to interview people on both sides of the aisle regarding policy that will help New Mexicans. Carla, of course, in the New Mexico Business Coalition has an association of cooperating bipartisan members that are all operating businesses. Well, how can we start helping business in New Mexico? Because I think Carla would say that we don't have a business-friendly environment here.
Who else would say that? Raise your hand. Just Carla?
Well, and I don't actually understand that because we are all going to make a better living. Like, tie sports into it. You've seen Bronco Mendenhall, our very successful coach, came in with the Lobo football team, had a great year, but he's already going to move on. Well, I'm not on Bronco's case. I actually think that's because we don't have a healthy enough business environment to actually raise the money to compete on the name, image, likeness stuff, because basically college athletes now are getting paid. And I'm all for that. But I don't think our business community is healthy enough. I think New Mexicans want to be the best, but we don't do the things right now to help us. We have negative job growth. We don't have the flourishing businesses that I think Carla believes, and I think she's trying to help businesses have.
And at this stage in your life, Jim, you want to be a part of improving. I mean, you've always worked, again, in business coaching with young people, with Calvary. You want to rededicate your life to...
Well, I really am prioritizing what is important. I have 5 grandchildren. They are number one. But number 2 is providing an environment where they can succeed. And that really has a lot more to do with business, healthcare, lowering crime, all of those things that we hear politicians talking about, but we don't really see any resolve.
Carla, do you think maybe people will listen to him?
I do. I
Him?
do.
They don't really listen to others, us, you, me, maybe to Jim.
You know what? People are starting to listen. They're starting to understand the gravity of the situation in New Mexico with the crime, with the rising costs that we have some control over in New Mexico that we don't take control over. We see our government continuing to increase costs. They increase costs on business. What happens to that? It's passed down to the consumer.
I pay it. Okay, we had fun, entertaining things with Jim Williams and Carla Sontag. Now, let's talk about the legislative session and what your podcasts are going to be about. And I want to start. And you had successes last year, but what do you think, Jim, your first topics will be in your podcast?
Well, I think that the very first thing we're going to do is talk with elected officials. We have to earn some credibility with people that don't necessarily, like for example, my viewpoint is one thing, but I'm not going to be emphasizing my opinions, my viewpoint. I'm going to be asking policymakers to tell us why they believe what they believe, what is your position, and what are your plans moving forward. Yeah. And there's a lot of different subjects, paid family leave, security on the border, crime. I mean, there's a plethora. So I'm going to start with actually interviewing the candidates who have recently been elected. Of course, that'll be after the first year when they take office, and find out what their priorities are and what they intend to do. And I think if you were able to, not everybody's going to agree. You're going to have progressive views, ultra-conservative views. You're going to have moderate views on both sides. And I think for people to be able to read those next to each other or listen to them on a podcast and then see them published in the New Mexico Sun, NewMexicoSun.com is the address for the new electronic newspaper. I think that's going to, you said it before we started doing this, you have such a long background in managing communications. I can't imagine doing that for the New Mexico Legislature, by the way, because there's a diversity of opinion that's crazy. I think if people can see side by side what policymakers are saying, I think that will help them use their brains.
You know, it's interesting, the side by side. I was thinking also, Carla, about this program. I've been hosting, 25, 26, but
wow.
This station gives a whole half hour to talk about topics. And during the election, we invite all candidates on a particular office. We invite all. Some don't accept, some do, but we give them a whole half hour. So your podcast, Jim, and when you write it in the New Mexico Sun, Carla, that'll be in black and white.
Yes. And we think as people turn more to electronic news rather than opinionated listening on television, that they then can form their own opinions based on the facts that are presented. Because that's the whole purpose of the Sun, is to present the facts with both sides of the issue, because there's always two sides to everything, and then let the people decide based on what they're reading and what their understanding is. So, and the podcast will follow the same format. That's what's going to initiate the news into the Sun.
I'm hopeful.
Wow.
That people.
Wow. That's good. Wow.
I'm hoping people that, I have a lot of friends that are, have differing political opinions. So I think that they will trust me enough to have interviews, give them an honest, allow them to make statements and say their positions without it being tainted in any way. And so if we can earn that credibility, just like what you've been doing, Diane, you are an expert at helping people communicate what they want to say. I'm hoping that provides that same format. In fact, there's going to be a forum for you as well, because you have a background of getting all these different opinions. And I don't know if you're at a point where you want to start saying, hey, this is what I think.
I kind of say that. I kind of say that.
Well, yeah.
I kind of say that
a
lot.
And I have to resist that myself, because I don't, But I know that I'm not the expert on these things, the policymakers. You know, I'm so thankful, for example, that we have progressives in the legislature, Democrats. I kind of separate those. I hope you're not offended by that. We have Republicans and independents. But I want them to think, hey, Jim is just going to interview us about our positions. He's not going to inject.
But by your questions, a person
Yeah.
tends to inject, and I think that's fair, as long as you allow them to answer and you don't edit it, which it sounds like you won't be editing.
Right.
You'll be including all that in the New Mexico Sun.
Yes.
How will you do the podcast? Like invite them to your location or by phone? How does that work?
We're going to use a streaming platform, so they'll need a camera on their computer, that kind of thing. That genre was kind of developed through COVID and seems to have worked pretty well. I'd love to do some in-person interviews, particularly on some stuff that I have planned for the New Mexico border. But we're right now in the middle of figuring that out with our production team. I think it's important that people walk on the border. Where is the wall? Where does it end? Does this really prevent people from coming over? But I'm going to say this, and I'm just kind of going off on a tangent, but I don't see either party making it more efficient to immigrate to this country. Well, as a banker, I could pull your credit report and do an FBI background check on you in an hour. Now, maybe the database in Mexico and South America and some of the other countries where immigrants are coming from, we don't have that data. But I'm telling you right now, we could create that data and we could help those countries. And we need people in this country to do a lot of work. That people that are not, that don't want to do, that are currently in the country. So I think there's some solutions that we need to work out for how to immigrate in a timely fashion. It shouldn't take 10 years.
Businesses here in New Mexico use immigrants.
Yes, yes. And we're all for that, for immigrants coming here into our country that want to integrate, be citizens, pay taxes, and be a part of America. But there's two problems. One is America needs to fix the immigration system to allow them to do that. And secondly, all those criminals that have come in with this open border policy, they need to leave. And I'm looking forward to Trump taking the lead on that and getting them out of here because they're endangering all of us.
What are your business people saying about the crime?
It's horrible. You know, we've got, if you drive down, I was on Channel 7 News, driving down Central.
Oh, God.
Businesses closing left and right, and people, Diane, these people have more rights than we do. They come into our country and they can camp where they want, live where they want, do what they want. We can't do that. And it's not safe for them, and it's not safe for us, and it needs to stop.
That's really, it's not safe for them is really important part. There's a lot of people I know that say, okay, well, a lot of people on the street, they just don't want to work. Well, the truth is that a large percentage of them are either currently substance abusers or they have harmed themselves mentally because of what they've done. And that isn't going to get better. Right. So we have to figure out a way, how do we take care of people that, can't take care of themselves? I mean, these are big questions. But I think Carla would agree with this. Her husband is a former Albuquerque police officer. We are 400 to 500 officers short right now, just having a presence. So both our police officers and our citizens are in danger because we don't have enough of a presence.
Shh.
But these are issues.
Don't tell everybody because they're gonna. I don't think the viewers of this station really are gonna go commit the crimes, but that's scary to know and to hear. And a lot of people don't realize we're down, that we're not protected.
Diane, does that seem like a complicated?
No.
See, to me, people substitute when something is hard, they use the word complicated. And I don't believe that's true. I think hard work is hard work, but it's not complicated. You've got to get rid of you got to bring back qualified immunity. You got to do some things that are simple to fix it.
On the situation with the police, we've actually been short 400 to 500 police officers for over 15 years. The difference now is the policy of the mayor and the police chief who are not enforcing laws on the books. That's the biggest difference. Yes, we need to staff up, that's important, but unfortunately we've been living with a shortage for a long time. We've got to enforce laws.
So we've got a session right now. You're going to be podcasting. You're going to be up there with the New Mexico Business Coalition fighting for things you believe are good for business. And again, business affects all of us because and they pay our salaries.
We'll be fighting to stop the bad stuff, like the paid family medical leave. You know, our belief is if a business owner wants to institute a policy like that, then they should do that. That's great. But government should not come in and dictate that every business must do that. Their own records in the actuarial department for the state have shown that their model will bankrupt in a short period of time. Then you will have had all these employees and all these employers paying into a system that now is defunct, and then what? They've just wasted a lot of money.
That's one. Oh boy. I mean, we have a short show. You'll have to be back. Education and workforce development. How about basing some things on successful models? Are we doing that, Carla, now?
We're not. We're giving money away in the hopes that it will produce something. And we've seen over and over, it's not. So we need to reward what is working and promote that and stop throwing it away for a wishful thinking proposition.
You're going to be towing topics on all of these things. How about the tax code?
It needs to be rewritten. We're only one of 2 states that has gross receipts tax. It does not work. It's not good for business. Very complicated.
What's the difference between gross receipts and sales tax, Carla?
Sales is based on a product.
Okay.
Gross receipts tax, they tax everything, including services. And that's why doctors and accountants, they shouldn't be taxed. And again, who's paying it? It's the consumer.
Correct. We know, because we're paying.
Yes.
Well, the big problem too is, and this is happening on all levels, we don't have enough doctors because the largest constituent of people in our state are on Medicaid. And the Medicaid reimbursement rates to doctors, hospitals, is so low, they can't support their practices. So what are they doing? Well, they're moving to Texas.
And also they can be they can be filed crimes against, not crimes, what am I thinking of? The doctors, malpractice suits.
Oh,
we
malpractice
don't have
suits.
Well,
limits on that.
Our governor tried to do something to change that last legislative session, but it hasn't had any effect, mainly because our claims against doctors is higher than any state in the country. So the legislature needs to take some very aggressive steps to protect doctors. But it also has to do the same with our recruiting police officers. They got rid of qualified immunity now, however many years ago,
And
which
that
means that if a police officer does something wrong, illegal, and it now means that you can sue them personally. But Diane, that doesn't actually make any sense, because if I'm a police officer and I'm making $60,000, $70,000 a year and I'm trying to support my family, yeah, maybe I have some savings, maybe I have a 401k, but if you're wanting to get a $10 million claim against me and I'm a police officer, you're not getting that. But you could sue the city of Albuquerque and probably get all you want. So removing that doesn't even make any sense financially for people that are victimized. And hey, I love our police officers. They sacrifice a lot. I appreciate them. You're going to have 1 or 2 people that do bad things. And I don't think there's a police officer I know that wouldn't say, yeah, let's get those guys out of the force and you know,
but they're
protect
already,
people.
before they did that, they were held accountable.
Yes.
They could be, they could lose their job. They could have to take unpaid time off. There were a lot of grounds to take care of a bad police officer, and sometimes you have them. But for the most part, we've got great men and women who are serving, who want to do the right thing, who shouldn't have to live with this threat that they're going to be sued personally.
And Diane, we gotta start appreciating the ones that do it right, which is 99% of them. They are amazing. Our first responders, our military personnel. I mean, the things that we have in this country to be thankful for is off the chart amazing.
And we are thankful. Thank you for bringing that up. We are thankful. It's a new year to be thankful. To find more information, of course, I wanted to talk about state control, but you'll have to look online for this. It's Convention of States to implement federal term limits and a balanced budget mandate for the federal government. Wouldn't that be amazing to have that? Also talking about regulations for business, energy, environmental goals with real world conditions. All of these things are topics that the New Mexico Business Coalition will be up there in Santa Fe fighting for this session.
Yes, anything that is good for business, we will be there to promote it and to protect them from the bad stuff that we know is going to unfortunately be coming.
When we talk about good for business, who are we really talking about, Jim?
I think you're talking about us. You're talking about normal citizens.
Yes, yeah. Because when you say good for business, oh boy, we're talking just about that one class of people. No, business affects all of us.
Absolutely. Yes. Where we shop, where we eat, how we buy our groceries, we need to protect that because every time we increase costs, it just comes back to us as a consumer.
And if the business that's closed down, a pharmacy, a supermarket, a grocery store, if they've closed down because of the crime here.
Well, and we have two examples. We have Walmart has already closed a couple stores in Albuquerque proper, as has Walgreens. When those solid foundation businesses, retailers are closing down, you have a big problem.
Carla Sontag, where can we find more information about you and Jim Williams? Jim, what a delight.
Thank you.
What a career, what a contribution you've made to our community. Thank you for that, everybody, on behalf of Issues and Answers. And of course, we've known Carla has contributed so much of her time and energy and passion. Both of you have passions. And now we can find more of you on
nmbizcoalition.org. Yes, and thank you, Diane, because your work is really important. The people that you bring on to talk about these important issues, people need to hear this. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of people listening to your show and watching it. So
thank you, Carla, for that, and KCHF TV. And today we really had a good entertainment with Jim Williams.
Yes.
A little bit of sports. Thank you, Jim Williams, Carla Sontag. Happy New Year to you and your families, and thanks everybody who watched KCHF TV and Issues and Answers. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Make it a great year with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program, email us at info@kchftv.org or call us at 505-345-1991. Join us again for Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater.